Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Great to have you with us, Andrew Paterson and Michael Remis, with you for the next couple hours. And give a quick plug, our pal Darren Bombing and Chris Walby are going to be firing up a bonfire bomber show, getting ready for the Bomber game against the Alouettes after Winnipeg Sports Talk, so make sure to hang around until the end of the program, and we'll shoot you over there, and you can get ready for a little more Bomber content before tomorrow's kickoff in the first of back-to-back games against the Montreal Alouettes for the 8-0 Blue and Gold. We've got a real fun show today. Former Winnipeg Jet Morris Lukowich is going to jump on the program. Morris is putting on his first Rocks and Jocks golf tournament at the end of the month at Kingswood, so we'll tell you a little bit about that. Talks about Gail Howardchuk and get Morris's thoughts on his old teammates Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel and the job they have at hand in trying to turn this thing around with the Winnipeg Jets and getting the team back to the playoffs this year. So Morris Lukowich is going to join us off the top. We'll hit a number of topics with Mike McIntyre of the Winnipeg Free Press. I believe Mike said that he's off to the Twin Cities to see the Blue Jays coming up on the weekend. I imagine the Pembina border crossing will be very busy. We'll talk a little bit about that, and Remo and I will get into the Blue Jays trade deadline moves as well in the first segment of the program coming up right away. And then a little later on, often in the off season of football, I spend most of my time with Geoff Fienberg talking golf, and there's some more interesting live PGA Tour developments that we'll touch on, but we'll also start to look ahead to NFL season. I know Fienberg's got some futures that he's laid so far, and we'll also talk about the irony and humor in Bill Belichick somehow releasing a texting the wrong guy and ending up costing a division rival a first-round draft pick and a third-round draft pick. So a little NFL and PGA talk towards the end of the program with Fienberg. We'll also hit the Coolbet lines for tonight, give you an up-to-date numbers on the Canadian Football League heading into the opening game of the week tomorrow with the Bombers and Alouettes. And we will also see if we can pick a few winners at Assiniboia Downs. Of course, live racing back at the track tonight, starting at 7:30 p.m. Big shout out to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day, including Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, where I'm going to be at for the next couple days, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Vita Health, Culligan Water, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend, Not Auto Corp, Little Brown Jug, Princess Auto, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club, Boston Pizza, Assiniboia Downs, and our friends at Coolbet Canada. So let's get this party started and get Michael Remis in here to get things going. Remo, what's going on?
Yeah, I'm just counting down till you go tomorrow, and I have the keys to the car. We'll see how that goes. I got a lot of videos of my kid. We're just going to be playing the whole time. No, just kidding.
Highlights of the third birthday party on the weekend?
Yeah,
that would probably be good for views. I mean, just get, Evan's a real cute little guy. Just get pictures of kids, maybe mix a puppy or two in there. I'm not sure how that'll go over on the podcast, but I can tell you the YouTube viewers will eat that stuff up.
I've been teaching him hockey player names, so I can definitely ask him about
special guest maybe tomorrow.
If I need a guest, yeah. So it'll be just me the next 2 days. But yeah, happy to be on here with you, counting down to the Bomber game tomorrow. And we did have a question in chat before the show. I was like, what's the top story today? I was like, well, got to be the Bomber game, trying to extend their undefeated streak. And Zach Collaros and Dalton Schoen being named top performers of the month for the CFL. Yep. So shout out to them. But feeling good here.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a minute because I do want to talk a little bit about Bombers before we, and we'll certainly hit that with Mike as well and the all news. But yes, as Michael mentioned, I'm away for the next couple days. I'm pretty sure this is my first day off since September when I missed a couple days to go to the Ryder Cup. And of course, your Ironman streak has been incredible. Still have never missed a show. That is going to change later on this month when you get some very well-deserved time off. And I know you'll do fine without me. We've got some great guests lined up. We've got some stuff in the can already. How this show goes on without you will remain to be seen later on this month. And fingers crossed we'll make that happen okay. But yeah, heading to Aikens tomorrow. Again, we've always talked a lot about Aikens on the program, but I am just so excited to go and see Pitt and the Terren family there and get away for a couple days. And because we're going to be somewhat off the grid now, there is Wi-Fi at the main lodge, but I have a feeling we're going to be getting the old AM radio out and listening to the game on the water tomorrow night with Derek Taylor and Doug Brown on CGOB. So it could be a little old school weekend, but I do promise to come back on Monday, hopefully with some incredible fishing tales of dominance on the water and some great pictures of our times out at Aikens Lake. And just to give you a quick heads up on what's coming up for the next couple days when Remo's holding it down, we'll have Ed Tate tomorrow on the program, Brandon Rowicki, and I'll tease this heading into the game. I'm going to be catching up with the new owner of the Montreal Alouettes, Gary Stern, and talking to him a little bit about, the investment in the Canadian Football League, what it's like being a fan, but also being an owner, some of the challenges in Montreal, as well as, thoughts on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who have really become the model franchise in the Canadian Football League. Of course, all leading into tomorrow's kickoff out in Montreal. And on Friday, Bombing's going to jump in with Remo, and he'll help out at the beginning of the program. Obviously, a big recap of everything that happens tomorrow. Ken Wiebe will take a quick time out from his Manitoba golf tour, and Remo and Hacksaw Hamilton will kick up the latest from in and around the National Hockey League. So we got a couple great shows for you with Remo leading the way, and I'll be back on Monday. And I guess the big question is, Remo, it would just be my luck that the one day that I take off, something happens. So be prepared for maybe some earth-shattering Jets news, which of course will happen when I'm away. I'm almost counting on it at this point because it's been pretty quiet up until now. Yeah,
it's been pretty clear that when we're not on the air, the Jets like announcing news, like they did with Rick Bowness news and the Dubois.
Canada Day.
Was it the Dubois? Yeah, the Dubois contract too? Wasn't that like a second after we went off the air?
302, I believe, the announcement that he had signed the qualifying offer.
Yeah, so
you got to be prepared for anything, but it should be a lot of fun. That being said, I mean, as far as the Winnipeg Jets goes, and again, we'll talk about a few Jets topics with Mike. This has been as slow a week as we've had, really, since the Stanley Cup playoffs. I mean, at all times, whether it was the Jets coaching search, whether it was some of the controversy that was stirred up, thanks to Pat Brisson, Pierre-Luc Dubois' agent, there's certainly been lots of topics. At this point right now, I think everyone can agree it really is a sense of sort of hurry up and wait right now for something to happen. Now, do I think the intention of the Winnipeg Jets is to head into the season as is? Definitely not. And I think it's important to remember, Remo, that there still is a ton of players that are out as free agents. I mean, we'll get to a couple of the signings that have happened this year. It's been more RFAs. The UFA market has basically ground to a standstill right now. And I think a combination of that is limited cap availability for many teams in the NHL. Many teams trying to figure out what's happening or what their costs are for the RFAs that they need to get signed that haven't been done yet. And then from the UFA's perspective, I think probably the offers that have been on the table, well, obviously haven't been enough to get them to put pen to paper. So there's still a lot of intrigue as to what happens with Nazem Kadri. We know John Klingberg signed that one-year deal for $7 million, sort of similar to what Taylor Hall did a couple years ago in Boston. And then some huge names. I mean, PK Subban, Phil Kessel, still waiting to hear about Patrice Bergeron's future, Anton Strawman, and the guy that I think is of most interest to those of us here in Winnipeg, as long as he stays on the market, is Paul Stastny. And I can't say that I'm optimistic that Stastny is back, but I can tell you that right now his hole in the lineup has not been filled, and it is significant right now, Reem. As I said, maybe you'll get a gift tomorrow and get some news on a signing right now. There is another week and a bit until Mason Appleton's arbitration hearing, and I certainly do expect that will get settled. I would be stunned if Appleton and the Jets actually make it to the arbitration room.
Yeah, we did have a comment in chat here from Rob Somerville, and he says, still curious as to why Chevy has done very little, if anything whatsoever, to improve the on-ice product that will be the 22-23 edition of the Winnipeg Jets. And, I mean, I'm not going to speculate as to why or how, but I think we all can look at this roster and say this team isn't better than last year, the team that didn't make the playoffs. They haven't replaced Andrew Kopp or Paul Stastny if he doesn't sign here. So I think for fans, they're having a hard time getting really excited about this upcoming season. The only major change they've made is the Rick Bowness hiring and replacing all the assistants. So I think there's still time. I would like to think some moves are coming. I mean, Nazem Kadri's going to sign somewhere. He's not going to sign, and then maybe someone will have to move around salary. There's a lot of speculation if he does have a deal or will have a deal with the Islanders if they trade Anthony Beauvillier. And we have seen a lot of players like Oliver Bjorkstrand and Devon Taves last year, really good players getting traded for, draft picks. And that seems crazy to me. So I want to believe that they're not done, that moves are going to happen, but the clock is ticking and we're a month away from September. As far as free agents, you mentioned Appleton. I'm kind of curious what the holdup is. Usually one side gives one, another side gives another number, and you split the difference. That's what happened with Jesper Bratt. They agreed on the contract. The New Jersey wanted 4.15. He asked for 6.5. They settled on 5.45. Somewhere in the middle. We did have one player go to arbitration, and we're waiting on hearing that. The Predators and Yakov Trenin. The Predators wanted 2 years at 1.35, and he wanted 1 year at 2.4. You'd think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. So I don't know how difficult this Appleton thing. Maybe you're waiting to hear what the sides offer. The team usually goes lower. The player asks for more, and they meet in the middle. So then we will have that big Appleton news coming up. Maybe we can have him on again like we did last year.
Yeah, you know what? For sure. I mean, I think that... as I said, I firmly believe that this will not go to arbitration, and that is not based on any inside information, just history and the fact that, what the Jets are probably looking at, what the Appleton camp is probably looking at, I can't imagine is very, very far apart. So, you've got a date, you've got a bit of a pressure point, and they will get to that. And I think that'll be that deal is going to be a heck of a lot easier than some of the other things that, we're talking about. And, so much of this, as I mentioned, has to do with the flat cap right now and the real challenges for many teams. And the funny thing is that this trade that most of us have been hearing about from insiders that's been speculated all year long has been Blake Wheeler. And as I've said a number of times, Remo, I don't think you can make the argument that if Blake Wheeler is being traded from this team, that this is an improvement of the quote club from a hockey standpoint. It may open up some more cap room to maybe get another player, but I mean, especially if you're eating some of the contract, $4 million or $3.5 million for a signing of the limited amount of talent that's available in free agency, simply is not going to make up for the loss of Blake Wheeler on the ice. Now, I guess the thought process is that if Wheeler is elsewhere, you've got a big hole when it comes to the leadership group to really kind of change the culture in and on it. But I think really, I mean, if people are looking for a big splashy trade with assets coming in of younger players that will be part of the future, I mean, you basically have to trade a pretty significant asset to do that. I'd speculated maybe Mark Scheifele would be in the mix. It doesn't sound like that is the case because, of course, the whole Pierre-Luc Dubois situation has, I think, really changed the way the Jets have had to think about those players. If Dubois was in on an 8-year deal and looked to be a leader going forward and could be counted on to be here for a long time, maybe the summer is a little bit different as far as how they get aggressive with a player like Mark Scheifele. But right now, I think there's far more questions than answers. And it really does seem more and more like, regardless of what happens throughout the end of this offseason, that Rick Bowness, Scott Arniel, and the staff that will be coming in to take over with a fresh start are going to have plenty of work on their hands to move past a very disappointing season last year, and most importantly, put their own stamp on the dressing room, the culture of the team. And I mean, that's a process, especially when you've got a group that's been together as long as many of the Winnipeg Jets have. That's a process that probably takes a lot longer than a couple weeks in training camp.
Yeah, maybe that's all you need. Maybe you need Rick Bowness to come in and give them the bonus treatment, a new defensive system, more buy-in from the players. Look, we had him on a couple weeks ago. Said everyone's raring to go. They want to get back at it. They want to recover. I do have concerns about, aside from the top-end talent, which we know is very good with Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers, the depth scoring last year was definitely an issue. You're really not getting anything from the fourth line, and you need to be able to not rely on, but have lines that are capable of contributing offense and scoring. So I'm not sure if we're going to see much different than last year, but I would love to be proven wrong, and I wish them all the best, but I think it's going to be a tough challenge when we all can see this roster is the same, if not worse, than last year for the Jets. And
here's the one thing, and you're right. I mean, I don't think anyone can make the argument that on paper the Jets have improved up until this point in the offseason. And you're always hoping that young players can make a step ahead. And of course, they didn't have Cole Perfetti for most of the year, and he'd be, having him have a healthy and productive season would be huge for the Winnipeg Jets. But there is. Here's the thing, and I often think of back to my old past as being, in marketing and sales and ticket sales and corporate sales. And, when you're engaging with customers, basically the fans, you do want to give them reason to be excited. And, hopefully people have a good positive feeling about the new coaching staff. But honestly, there was some real... it was miserable last year, and I don't want to say the team was completely unlikable, but at times they were, and I certainly think that some players, the way they handled themselves, did some damage to maybe their personal reputation and the way that fans sort of saw them. And running it back after a lot of empty seats last season, the one thing I can tell you, and I hear this every day from fans, as optimistic and as hopeful as people are, there hasn't been anything that has really grabbed them. And I think for the team, for the organization, for the buzz around the city heading into next season, some sort of a move like that certainly would get people excited. But at the end, it is all about wins and losses. It is a results-based business. And if they think that this is the group that can get better results with the new head coach, all the power to them. But if that doesn't happen, it really sets up for, shall we say, moving out of this quote-unquote 2-year window, which, to be honest, is really a 1-year window when you look at the contracts and what needs to happen. And that could push things forward even earlier right now. Tough start to the season, too. A pretty tough schedule through October. But everyone does start back at zero, and there's lots of hockey left to be played. Hey, you were mentioning the depth on the club. Travis Yost has an interesting piece grading every NHL team's right wing depth, and this is a concerning one for Winnipeg Jet fans. He already had done the team's left wing depth, and the Jets weren't too bad there because, of course, Kyle Connor and Nikolai Ehlers were both considered left wingers. The right wing, Reem, is a very different story. There are 5 tiers that Travis Yost has put the teams into. The Minnesota Wild, Nashville Predators, and the Leafs are in the top tier. You've got another 10 teams in the second tier, including teams like the Avalanche, Lightning, Boston, Oilers. 10 teams in the third tier. 7 teams in the fourth tier. And then just 2 teams in the 5th tier. And that tier is called In Trouble. And those teams are the San Jose Sharks and the Winnipeg Jets. The Sharks, Barabanov, Kunin, Gregor, Lorentz. That's not scaring anyone. And the Jets' depth chart as of right now, Blake Wheeler, Cole Perfetti, Mason Appleton, and Christian Reichel. And as bad as that looks, at least on paper, and Yost's piece compared to the rest of the league, imagine what that looks like if Blake Wheeler's just not on the team and you don't really have anything coming back to add for that. Now, I really don't think that will be the case. I think that if they do manage to trade Wheeler, there would be a player probably with a significant salary coming back. Whether they're an underperforming guy or not, I'm not too sure. But we've talked a lot about the blue line last year. This year, it's the bottom six and certainly that right side with or without Blake Wheeler in the mix for next year.
Yeah, and you look at the team last year, as they had 2 right-handed shots in the lineup at times with Wheeler and Scheifele. So, I mean, they're in a tough spot. Sometimes you see Ehlers listed as right. I've seen him in left as well. But I think the Jets' depth last year we saw, you weren't getting offensive contributions from the bottom 6 forwards. And, Blake Wheeler is pretty much the only right winger. Cole Perfetti, maybe you can pencil him in or on a really good year, 40, 50, maybe even 50 points. But I think, look, he's playing his first full year. I think those are still kind of high expectations, so we'll have to wait and see how he does. But yeah, after that, they don't have it. And if you want to trade Blake Wheeler, you're trading him to change the culture and change the leadership of the team. But you would definitely be, losing talent in your lineup, and that would definitely hurt them if in their quest to get back into the playoffs. So I keep looking at all these. It's the offseason, so you see a lot of people putting out rankings. And, one thing I've noticed is, the Jets have Ehlers and Connor, and then, big drop off. And then on defense, their best defenseman might be Morrissey would be like the 40th best defenseman or something, or Pionk. And maybe hope Pionk can have a rebound as well. It's kind of too bad because Morrissey had the down year 2 years ago, and Pionk was great. And last year, Morrissey was great, and Pionk, battled through injuries. Maybe they all get on the same page and both have great years. So, I mean, things can happen. And but I think looking now at the team, as we've said, I mean, hard to get excited. Maybe once training camp starts, you see them on the ice, you can start to believe. But here we are, August 3rd.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I think the majority of the fan base is going to be excited for the season and will want to see the team come out, and, we'll probably reserve judgment. But I'm just saying that if you wanted to make a splash this summer and you wanted to really inject some energy after a real disappointing season, that just hasn't happened yet. And, I realize that, making a trade for the sake of making a trade is usually a loser's bet. But there are opportunities, in the Winnipeg Jets, unfortunately, more so than most teams, I think, really have to start thinking that way because, you're coming down to the short strokes on some of these key contracts. And if the team isn't pushing for a Stanley Cup, I think we've been pretty clear. I mean, you're going to have to make decisions to trade players, before their contracts are up. And when that happens, I think, how this season goes in the first 2-3 months, I think will absolutely indicate whether some of those players are available this year or whether it's an off-season thing or potentially seeing if they can be re-signed and then go into the final year of the contract. So we'll touch on a number of these topics with Mike McIntyre a little bit later on. I know Remo and Brandon, Brandon had a lot to say last week. Not that anything's changed, but certainly get to that. And, of course, the Bombers. There was a couple signings. You mentioned the Jesper Bratt, who just gets a 1-year deal to avoid arbitration, and they'll probably do this again next year. Andrew Mangiapane gets a 3-year, $17.4 million contract. He was the guy that looked like he was going to win the Cy Young last year, Remo, with like 20 goals and 3 assists at one point. Ended up finishing with 35 goals, 55 points, and gets an AAV at 5.8. Shout out to Evolving Hockey. They just about nailed that one exactly. And I think we might start seeing more players like Mangiapane, like Laine, sign in the 3 to 4 year range, in that, the teams get the player right now with the cost certainty. And I think the players certainly will be hoping that in 3 years or in 4 years, when their contract is up, we're in a much healthier economic climate in and around the league. And the cap has not stayed flat, but increased significantly, which will be great for the guys that'll be going back to the UFA market.
Yeah, 3 years for Mangiapane. As you said, he's 26, so he will be a UFA at the end of this contract. And I was really curious how Calgary was going to manage their offseason with Mangiapane and RFA, Tkachuk and RFA, Gaudreau a UFA. Well, Gaudreau left in free agency. We know that Tkachuk traded for Huberdeau, who's a UFA, and Uyghur, so that's a boost. I do wonder if they look to trade some of their one of their defensemen. I'm not exactly sure who, but they have many. They did sign Oliver Shillington as well over the weekend, a 2-year
And they
contract.
don't have a single defenseman over $5 million. I mean, the way that they're set up, and again, how long you can keep that group together, I'm not sure. Calgary's a fascinating team, for a number of reasons. The way they lost Gaudreau, the way they were forced into trading Matthew Tkachuk, but what they ended up getting back from Tkachuk, which has then led to the speculation about Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau's future. But it seems like they're all in for this year with the Flames. Huberdeau announcing that he's going to wear number 10 in the Sea of Red earlier, I believe it was yesterday on social media. So they certainly have got a lot done in some really tough circumstances. But as Rene Deneau said in chat, there still are 7 teams that are over the cap right now. So there will be some moves that will continue to be made. And I'm not sure whether this is a big standoff or staring contest between some GMs that are not getting their price right now. But at some point, something's going to give. And we'll just see whether that happens in the next couple weeks or whether we might be talking about some of these stories still as training camps open in and around the league.
Yeah. Here, I'll just chime in. One thing I wanted to mention is we're seeing this a lot with the RFA. I think you touched on this too, just how the RFAs now are taking the shorter term deals, going towards, becoming a UFA or 1 year before UFA. And then, like Tkachuk, they'd try to force a trade and be like, hey, I'm not signing with you. So let's get this on. And then he benefits by going to Florida, getting the deal. And the Calgary, I thought, benefited as well from that. And again, part of that is, as you mentioned, the salary cap not going up and players saying, hey, why should I sign long-term now when we're probably going to have a bigger salary cap? There's going to be a bigger pie for me to get a piece of. So I think you're trying to balance long-term security versus, future earning power with players. And we did have, Bratt signing the 1-year deal, Trainin going to arbitration, Mangiapane signing. I'm trying to think. I think that was all the signings. We actually did have some signings.
Owen Tippett got 2 years with the Flyers.
That was the other one.
$3 million as well. But as I said, this has been the quietest week of the year. And I guess maybe with the long weekend, start of August, a few GMs maybe getting away for a little bit of downtime, but I imagine the phones are still being busy and certainly there's still plenty of work to go. All right. Right off the bat, and we'll talk more about these topics with Mike a little bit later on. But Remo, off the top, you mentioned we've got some big Bomber news. First of all, congratulations. 2 of the 3 players of the month are from the Blue Bombers. And I can't disagree. Zach Collaros, all he does is win. And Dalton Schoen, the rookie phenom receiver with 2 multiple touchdown games, player of the week in week 5. They are 2 of the 3 stars of the month for the Canadian Football League. And I'll be honest, that makes a lot of sense considering no one has been able to beat them so far this year.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Jalen Ackland, number 3, he's been really good too for Ottawa. And you look at why Hamilton has been not as good. Well, they lost Ackland, they lost Brandon Banks, and they lost Masoli. And I think that's definitely
and
tough
to
for
Garrett
them.
Davis.
Yeah, I mean, big losses, but Collaros, all he does is win. He had a poor game, not throwing too many attempts against Edmonton. They managed to win. Then he comes back last week against Calgary, throws for 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. And Dalton Schoen, he's going to be runaway rookie of the year, I think. I don't know how anyone can touch him. And who was it? Dave Naylor put out on Twitter over the weekend saying, is he the best rookie receiver since Brandon Zylstra with Edmonton, who is now in the NFL? He's bounced around Minnesota and Carolina. I loved playing Zylstra in DraftKings when he was catching passes from Mike Riley. So Dalton Schoen, enjoy him while he's here. I wonder what the future is, but hey, they're trying to win back-to-back Grey Cups, and 8-0 off to a pretty good start, and easy to win when you got 2 of the top performers of the month. Incredible. Yeah,
he's just been a revelation so far, and they've needed him. I mean, losing some key players, including Kenny Lawler from last year. And then, what's been so impressive is the way that he's played in the last couple of games with Greg Ellingson out, who had really become the clear-cut number 1 target for Zach Collaros. Collaros with over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns, the number 1 star of the month. And Dalton Schoen, 440 and 5 touchdowns, top performer in the number 2 hole right now. Hey, just before we get to Morris Lukowich, let's take a quick look at the roster, which has been released for tomorrow's game. And I know Ed Tate's going to join you tomorrow on the program. We're able to talk a little bit more about the matchup, and we'll have my conversation with Alouettes owner Gary Stern. But the big news is that Jackson Jeffcoat is back after missing the last 2 games. The Bomber all-star defensive lineman is going to be on the opposite end of his old running mate, Willie Jefferson. Cannot say enough about how well Willie played and the rest of the guys picking up the slack for one of the best in the Canadian Football League, but they've got it done. The defense gets that big boost back. Offense does not get the boost of Greg Ellingson. But considering they were able to go and put up 35 points in Calgary against a very good Stampeders defense, they can probably handle another week or so without Greg Ellingson if the guys playing in the O right now continue to produce the way that they have.
Yeah, I thought everyone was great all around. They really stepped up in that game against Calgary. Drew Waltarski making catches, Rashid Bailey catching every ball thrown to him, and Nick Dembski, what a return with 2 touchdowns. One of his scoring those touchdowns remind me of that play he made in the Grey Cup as well, late in the fourth quarter, stopping on a dime. And he's so shifty. So they've got so many weapons, even without Greg Ellingson. Jackson Jeffcoat's back. I mean, how do you stop these guys on defense? Could we see it? It's kind of funny at 8-0, we still haven't seen like a full roster and the best Bomber squad. So they're in really good shape here. Heading towards the second
and
half.
I'm glad you mentioned Dembski. And you know what? We maybe glossed over that a little bit, talking about, so many of the other things. I mean, I was so gushing about Brady Oliveira and what the running game did. And, I thought Legio had a couple clutch kicks. Obviously, what Caleros did. Nick Dembski returning and being productive as he was, an absolute revelation. He was on the 6-game injured list, so he was not allowed to practice at any point with his teammates, was activated going into the game and went in having not practiced in a month. Now, he said he was still doing some running on his own and whatnot, but that's an athlete right there, and a guy that came in and made an immediate impact, Reem, with, those 2 touchdowns in the first half in a lot of ways really set the tone for the Bombers hanging in that game with the Calgary Stampeders, who I think were very much focused on getting out to a lead and, establishing themselves playing with it in the second half. And thanks to Nick Dembski and, of course, the arm of Zach Caleros, that didn't happen.
Yeah, and you saw in the game against Edmonton, and I think other games this year where Zach has kind of just focused on one guy. It was all what Schoen had 9 or something of the 16, whatever it was in that Edmonton game. And, Ellingson had such a large percentage, but with Dembski back, you're able to spread the ball around more. And there's always a threat of some gadget plays, and they did actually have a nice sweep to Janarian Grant. So I think it just evens out. It gives another weapon that the defense has to worry about, and you saw everyone else contributing as well. So, Dembski's back. We'll still wait on Greg Ellingson, but they look pretty good. They look pretty good last game. It's kind of scary to think what they could look like with full health.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we'll chop it up, get some more Jets talk and Bomber talk with Mike McIntyre coming up in a few minutes. We will talk some golf and NFL towards the end of the program with Geoff Fienberg. We got our picks. We got Coolbet lines coming up. But in just a minute, former Jet great Morris Lukowich joining the program. Before we do that, though, do want to give a big shout out to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, with great prices on Winnipeg's best selection of natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries. Barbecue season is here, and you can get your barbecue on with delicious lean bison steaks or chicken, as well as hot dogs, burgers, and great non-alcoholic drink options for you and your guests, like Sober Carpenter beer and Clever mocktails. And hey, if you're on the run, Vita Health, a great spot to pop in for a quick lunch with grab-and-go Vita Market salads, soups, sandwiches, and more. And don't forget to try that tasty falafel salad. And hey, if you can't make it down to one of the stores, visit their new fully shoppable website at myvita.ca to buy online or schedule a delivery or in-store pickup. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 7 Winnipeg locations, including the newest store in Linden Ridge, and online at myvita.ca. Wow, it's been a busy summer for Wallace and Wallace, although considering that they have been the fencing leaders in the city for 75 years, as well as the leaders in overhead doors. And then you add in the work they're doing on boathouses and docks throughout the summer, you'd imagine that they'd be busy. But the bottom line is, if your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if you've got needs for the garage door, Wallace is there. And as well, if you're spending some time on the lake and there's a dock or a boathouse boathouse door that's catching your eye, chances are it's one of theirs. They've got everything you need for it: steel, aluminum doors, polycarbonate or glass panels, and a design that's perfect for your little piece of paradise. Whether it's for fencing, overhead doors, or the boathouse, Wallace has you covered. Find out more or give them a call or arrange for a service visit at 204-452-2700. You can also hit them up online at wallacedoors.com or check out their showroom over on Lawson Road. Andrew and the gang at F Apparel are keeping fellas in Winnipeg looking sharp. A locally owned company with the best selection and best deals on menswear, including custom-made suits starting at $400, and a great summer deal right now with custom shirts, 3 for $210. I just ordered a couple 2 weeks ago or so. Looking forward to getting them in the next little bit. We will do another suit day, and I'll have a great new suit from F Apparel to wear on it. But if you're looking ahead into the fall, knowing you've got events coming up and getting a little bit back to normal after the last couple of years, F Apparel's the place to go. Give Andrew and the gang down there a call. Pop down and see them at 190 Smith Street downtown, or you can check them out or make an appointment online at that's EPHapparel.com. And yes, tomorrow it's Aikens Lake time. I'll be away for a couple days, but don't worry, we'll come back with some incredible video and pictures of all the fun we're having out at Aikens Lake. And if you're thinking about planning an incredible fly-in fishing getaway right here in the province of Manitoba, Aikens Lake is the place for that. Check them out on social media at Aikens Lake and online at aikenslake.com, and get planning for an incredible trip for family and friends or a corporate outing next year out at Aikens Lake. All right, Mike McIntyre, the Free Press, coming up in about 20. But right now, let's welcome in former Winnipeg Jets star Morris Lukowich to talk a little bit about the squad and the golf tournament that he's having coming up later this month at Kingswood. He is the brains behind the operation of the big tournament coming up, the Rocks and Jocks first annual. Morris Lukowich joins us now. Luke, what's up, man? How's the summer going?
The summer has been fantastic. Actually got away for a little bit to Fernie for a week with my wife Eva and our 18-year young daughter Zoe, and so that was fantastic family time. And I'm in a piece of paradise, Christina Lake in BC, just getting ready to play some pickleball with some friends of mine.
Well, I'm glad you were able to jump on with us, because we did want to get the word out on the first annual Morris Lukowich Rocks and Jocks Golf Tournament. Folks, we'll give you more details in a few minutes, but right now you can mark it down. Monday, August 29th at Kingswood Golf and Country Club. And it supports the Ab McDonald Foundation, which we'll find a little bit about that as well. Luke, though, before we get to the tourney, a huge day for the Winnipeg Jets, certainly the Jets alumni, and this community coming up on August 1st. And that is when your dearly departed teammate Dale Hawerchuk will be honored. October 1st, I should say, before that game, it will be honored with the unveiling of the statue. I know Dale meant so much to this organization, and you as a friend, as a teammate. What was it like hearing that Dale Hawerchuk is going to be immortalized with that statue in downtown Winnipeg just by the rink?
Well, what a beautiful thing for the Jets to do, and to acknowledge such an amazing hockey player. And you know what? I still find it difficult to believe at times that he's not with us any longer. At the Heritage Classic, he was so full of life, so full of humor, and his witty sarcasm at times. And so, I mean, it's just a sadness that to even think that he's gone. And there's been some fantastic hockey players that have come through the Jets organization, and he is one of them. So it's I think it's fantastic that this is being done for him.
Hey, I just have to ask you about that 81-82 season. I mean, you, of course, had scored over 60 in the WHA, but that was the year you popped over 43 in the NHL. How many apples did 10 get on the 43 goals that you popped in 81-82? Did you play with him quite a bit?
You know, at that time, I played quite a bit with him in his rookie season, and then we had a nice line. There was Paul McLean, I believe, Howard Chuck, and myself. And then in the next year, and then with Brian Mullen coming in, I believe that Brian then filled that spot, and I moved over with Thomas Steen and Willie Lindstrom. And I mean, talk about two incredible centermen. You know, both of them could dish the puck off so well. So it was fun playing with both of them. In the year that I got the most goals in my NHL career, I was playing primarily with Thomas, but with Dale on the power play.
Morris Lukowich is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Well, I mean, October 1st going to be a huge day for the organization, and I imagine individuals like yourself and the Jets alumni will be well represented as well on such a special day in honoring the legacy of Howard Chuck with the Winnipeg Jets. You know, speaking of those teams in the early 80s, Luke, must have been interesting from your perspective to see your old teammates, Rick Bowness and Scott Arniel, as the new guys in charge of turning the team around. What was your reaction when you heard Bowness as the head coach and, of course, Arnie coming back as the associate with Rick?
Well, first of all, both are quality men with tremendous character. There's Rick is a winner. He was so close with Dallas I believe just a couple of years ago, or like in the COVID season, actually winning it all. So, you know what? The thing about Rick Bowness is that when we played together, we actually were playing together, and all of a sudden he was behind the bench coaching as, I believe, an assistant coach. Is that I've played lots of cards with Rick, and lots can be learned by playing cards with a man. And Rick is one of the best card players I've ever played with. He knows every card that's been played, and somehow he figures out what everybody has in their hands. So he's just a very smart man. And so I love it that they got him. I am puzzled by why Dallas let him go. Dallas has lost, and the Jets definite benefit and win in that situation. And I mean, Scott is just, I mean, quality through and through. He's got head coaching experience, and they will be a very good tandem.
We're looking forward to seeing what they can do. And you mentioned that card playing of Rick Bowness. We'll see what sort of a hand he has to play by the time the offseason is finished up. But as we mentioned, there still is lots of time before training camp, and part of that is to enjoy the summer. And what a great idea to put together a golf tournament. It's been a little while. I mean, obviously with COVID, there's been a lot of opportunities that normally happen each and every year to get together, and that hasn't happened. Tell us about coming up with the idea to bring everyone together for a Rocks and Jocks golf tournament bearing your name, Mo.
Well, this has been an idea that started before COVID hit, actually. We, Christy Houston, and by the way, you said I'm the brains behind this. I am not. She is. And also a very, very good friend of mine, Sean Chorley, who's a Winnipeg policeman. Sean and I have done, he's invited me out to many, many hockey events, many hockey, golf events, and I've always enjoyed my time with him. I'm just getting to know Christy. She is just a beautiful gal. I've played her golf course a few times now. It has like two of the most beautiful par threes on it that I've ever seen, where we actually hit across, I believe, a river. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to the day.
Well,
I pray that we get sunshine.
Yeah, well, you know what? I'll tell you what, this month is shaping up to be quite good. Mother Nature owes us some sunshine, considering the way the spring and the summer started, Luke. So hopefully we can get an IOU for the great weather on the 29th of August. Now, what's interesting with this is that it is, we always focus on yourself and the hockey background, but it's not just hockey. There'll be a number of NHL legends, former Winnipeg Jets, but also Winnipeg Rock legends from Streetheart, Indian City, and more. How did the idea to sort of merge music and hockey together for the event?
You know what? Recently, in the last number of years, and it's perhaps because my daughter Zoe, she's an inspiring, actually aspiring and inspiring singer-dancer. She's performed like about 10 years with what's called the Young Canadians in Calgary. They are in the grandstand show every year. I just finished watching 11 nights in a row of her performances.
Wow.
Fantastic show. So somewhere along there, I started to attract the musicians into my life. One of the very first ones was I got a phone call from a buddy who I was coaching his son in Calgary, and he said, "Hey, do you want to go see Alice Cooper tonight?" This was about 5 years ago. And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, why is this possible?" And he said, "Because they have a drummer that's playing with them, and his name is Brent Fitz. And Fitzy used to wear your jersey when he grew up in Winnipeg." And I said, "Really?" So I ended up going to this Alice Cooper concert. He was playing with the backup band. And then I got to meet him afterwards, and we've just struck up a huge friendship. And we're actually going to be seeing him on Thursday night here in Grand Forks in a summer music fest. He's going to be playing with a band called Took. So it's going to be good to see him again. And along that, I got introduced to some others like Paul McNair, who I think has one of the most amazing voices. Like I've heard him sing with Streetheart. He's filled in for Kenny Shields with Kenny passing away. And Paul, my gosh, that man has a voice. So what's really cool, Paul, is going to be there that night. So we're going to combine some golf, some hockey, and listen to some Paul McNair and others later that night.
Well, that's going to be really cool. And I got to tell you, Fitz is a great friend of the program. We had him on just a month or two ago before he was playing with Took at Country Fest in Dauphin. Got a chance to see him out there. Great connection to Winnipeg, of course. And a great addition to the lineup for the first ever Morris Lukowich Rocks and Jocks golf tournament on the 29th of April. Now, Mo, raising money for the Ab McDonald Foundation. Why was this important to you and to raise money in the name of the first ever Jets captain?
When I got to know Ab before he passed away, I got to know him just prior to the Heritage Classic, during the Heritage Classic, and afterwards. And actually, the last time I ever saw him alive, we were actually golfing Kingswood together in, I think, Brian Trache tournament. And Ab, I think he was 80 at that time. And he came and he played every hole. He played every hole. The last couple, all he did was come out and putt. It was an extremely hot day. I mean, I fell in love with Ab. He was a kind of a carbon copy of John Belleville. Kind of the same class, same stature, nice, good stories, fun to be around. And that last round of golf, he sank a number of putts, which we just he had so much fun that day. There was, it's fantastic, in these golf tournaments to sink putts because everybody's high-fiving and just loving it. And that happened that day. So I just trust that whatever we're supporting there, whatever projects they're up to, is for the good of Winnipeg and for the good of people.
Yeah, the Ab McDonald Foundation supports charitable activities that empower youth and adults in the Weston community of Winnipeg, and certainly that's an area that I think has traditionally been able to really make the most of opportunities like this to work with a great charity like the Ab McDonald Foundation. So, folks, here are the details. It's Monday, August 29th at Kingswood. Registration's at 10 a.m., tee-offs at noon. Each golfer is going to receive a special tee gift, which will be autographed by Morris Lukowich. Golfers will be able to play with former Jets, other NHL legends, Winnipeg Rock legends from Streetheart, Indian City, and more. Everyone will get a photo with Morris Lukowich, the Avco Cup, the Molson Cup as they arrive at the tournament. Big special thank you to the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. And if you want more information, would like to sponsor, would like to register, whether as an individual or as a team, I guess the best way to do it right now is contact Christie. That's Christie at kingswoodgolf.ca and count yourself in for what should be a great day at the first annual Morris Lukowich Rocks and Jocks Golf Tournament over at Kingswood. And hey, speaking of the Avco Cup, Luke, the Avco Cup will be there for the tourney. But you've got the big WHA reunion coming up in October. I'm sure there's a lot of excitement building for that event.
There is. There is one other thing I'd like to mention first. With the tournament, I'm going to be bringing along, and this is something I do nowadays, I bring along to autograph sessions or when I'm doing some public speaking, a lot of my former NHL WHA jerseys. So I have WHA All-Star, NHL All-Star, Heritage Classic jerseys that actually have NHL sweat in them. And people get to put them on. And I find that people just get thrilled doing this. So that's going to be one other little perk with coming to the golf tournament. They get to put these on and get a picture. And now WHA reunion, yes, Peter Young has been helping out a lot with getting this organized. It's going to be a Whistler, October 10th. The thing I love about it was, I believe it's going to be an opportunity to thank Bobby Hull for having made it possible for so many of us to actually get to play pro hockey. When he left the NHL, took a little bit of a risk, but it was also he got paid $1 million up front to take that risk. He formed a league that allowed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of players to play pro hockey. And I'm convinced that had that not happened, I think I was probably too small to get into the NHL. The WHA, the 3 years I had there, allowed me to demonstrate that, especially at that time, the European flow was coming into the game, that there was room for a small guy who was fast, who was somewhat scared and so was faster, and that could score some goals. And so I'm going really to say thanks to Bobby Hull.
Well, it's going to be a great event, and obviously that league means so much here in Winnipeg and really paved the way for the Winnipeg Jets to be in the National Hockey League, to leave and now come back. And obviously we're all looking forward to hopefully a big turnaround from the club coming up this October. Again, WHA, and we'll talk more about that on the show coming up closer to the big event in Whistler. But August 29th, gang, Morris Lukowich, first annual Rocks and Jocks Golf Tournament at Kingswood. Once again, it's Christie, Christie at kingswoodgolf.ca to get involved, book a foursome or get involved. And Morris, hopefully we can catch up before and when you're back here for then. Thanks so much for doing this, and go smoke your opponents on the pickleball court and have a great day.
I will. And Hustler, you know what? I really believe in mindset. And so I'd like to toss out a little mindset here is that there's a Stanley Cup parade in Winnipeg 2023. I just really wish all the very best success to the Jets. Rick, Scott, go get them. It's just like a team's got to get on a roll and just have everything fall in place. I just really hope it can happen.
I love the mindset, Luke. I love it. You have that winning mindset when you get out on the court, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few weeks here in Winnipeg for the first annual Morris Lukowich Rocks and Jocks Golf Tournament. Thanks for jumping on today.
Okay, thanks, Hustler.
All right, great stuff with Morris Lukowich. I know a childhood favorite of our next guest, Mike McIntyre, teed up, going to join us right away. Before that, do want to thank Culligan Water for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Culligan Water, family owned for over 65 years in business as the water experts in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, drinking water systems, citywide water delivery services, and commercial and industrial water products and solutions available. Whether it's for the home, the cottage, or the office, Culligan's got you covered. Pop down and visit them at 1200 Sargent Avenue. Give them a call at 694-5180 or check them out online at drinkculligan.com. The gang at Royal Sports ready for the upcoming NFL season. We're going to talk NFL with Fienberg in a few minutes. Of course, they got draft hats, jerseys, and so much more. Royal Sports, as any fan knows, is the headquarters for the best selection of licensed merchandise from around the sports world. But so much more than that at the Royal Sports Superstore. Tons of cool stuff on the King skate, snow, and surf side. And the biggest hockey department in town. Tons of bikes, soccer, baseball, and so much more. Not to mention tennis, disc golf, some great summer activities. Pop on down to Royal Sports, get ready for the upcoming season, and make the most of summer. And of course, follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. The gang at Breezy Bend are very excited for the upcoming Canadian Women's Mid-Am and Senior Championships coming to Breezy. Got a chance to head out on the weekend with some of the fellas, and my God, is the course in absolutely mint shape. The one thing, the weather has sort of sucked at times this summer, but man, has it made the golf courses beautiful, and Breezy is in absolutely pristine condition, getting ready to welcome some of the best women golfers in the province. If you're thinking about a long-term home for you and your family on the golf course, talk to our friend Corey Johnson about getting on the waiting list at Breezy for next season and find out more on everything that Breezy has to offer online at breezybend.ca. And a big cheers to our friends Nick and Nikki over at the Nick and Nikki DQ. That dinosaur cake for little Evan's birthday on the weekend was a big hit. And of course, if you've got a need for a DQ cake for any sort of gathering, the Nick and Nikki DQ group have you covered. Hit them up on Instagram at DQ Manitoba. You can get your cake customized as you like it, ready for a quick and easy pickup at any of the 4 Nick and Nikki DQs, which of course is DQ Northgate, DQ Niverville, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. And whether you need a cake or not, you definitely need a trip around there these next few days to take advantage of summer. It's blizzard weather, amazing summer blizzard flavors available, and of course, those delicious stack burgers. 3 Winnipeg locations also available right now for delivery service options at Skip the Dishes and DoorDash. All right, let's welcome in Mike McIntyre to the program before he heads off to the Twin Cities. Mike, you're just saying before we jumped on that old Luke was your guy as a kid, cutting your teeth as a hockey fan down at the old barn.
Yeah, I think I was like 1982, when I went to my first Jets game. My dad took me, and he kind of encouraged me to pick a favorite player. I didn't really know anybody on the team at that point, and Morris Lukowich was my guy. I think I had gotten a hockey card of his, and sort of familiarity in that sense. And then, watching my hockey card come to life on the ice in front of me, I became a big Morris Lukowich fan. And, Huss, if you had told a 7-year-old Mike McIntyre back in 1982 that one day you will follow Morris Lukowich on Winnipeg Sport Talk on YouTube and podcasts, 7-year-old Mike McIntyre probably would have said, "What the hell are you talking about?"
No doubt. It's that's going to be a real neat event for Morris and the gang putting on that tournament, and really cool they're doing it in support of the Ab McDonald Foundation, which helps those in need out in the Weston area. Listen, I want to get to talk about your weekend coming up, the excitement around the Jays and the Canadian invasion that inevitably is going to happen, and the Bombers as well. But Remo and I were talking at the start as much as we could about the Jets right now, because it has been very eerily quiet around the Jets and the rest of the National Hockey League. Mike, let me just ask you, what do you make of the situation the team is in right now? And are you hearing that are things happening behind the scenes right now I'm sort of torn whether I think that Kevin Cheveldayoff has some deals on the table that they could take that they just don't think that are good enough, or are we in a situation right now that with the flat cap and the situation that many other teams are in, making deals is just so difficult right now that the Winnipeg Jets are feeling that they're better off holding on to the cards that they have as opposed to maybe making a deal that they don't feel helps them win hockey games next year?
Yeah, the old the devil you know versus the one you don't, right? I mean, a big part of me still thinks that this is the calm before the storm, because we've all kind of been waiting for a storm when it comes to the Jets and a shakeup when it comes to a trade or trades. I think the free agent ship has sailed. Any thought that the Jets were going to be big players, I never really thought they were going to be big players in free agency. I thought if there was going to be a splash this summer, it would be likely the trade market. And so, most of the big names are off the free agent board, and those that remain, I don't expect the Jets are in. We've heard Kenny Weeb reported, I think last week, that a guy like Danton Heinen was somebody the Jets took a run at. There's been a few others as well, not big splashy names, but depth pieces that the Jets look to add. And for whatever reason, whether they got outbid, or in the case of Heinen, I don't think they got outbid. They just lost out to a guy who chose to go back to the same thing we were just talking about, the devil he knows, and that's the Penguins, and who wouldn't want to play with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and company for another few years. So, the Jets, that tells me that they realize that there's still work to be done on this roster. But I don't know if there is going to be the storm coming at any point in time, or if running it back is kind of now the next best plan. And it may not have been what they originally intended to do this summer, but if Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't like what others are trying to sell him in terms of the return, I think you're right, Huss, that this is a situation, at least up until today, where he's decided better to go with what better to stand pat than desperately make a mistake that comes back to bite you. Now, it's going to be a tough sell for this fan base. There's no question about it. And I'm sure you've noticed, just as I and many others have, the Jets are doing a pretty aggressive marketing campaign right now for season ticket packages, mini packs and whatnot. They have to sell tickets in this market. And that's something they didn't have to do for the first decade that they were back. But we saw last year, they didn't have a single sellout. And yes, there were all kinds of reasons for that. Beyond their control, certainly the global pandemic and the financial toll that it took on many. But I would say the play of the team and anger that at times bordered on apathy, I think, from certain members of the fan base. And that's something that they are acutely aware of. And, they got to sell tickets. And I don't think there's been anything happen this summer. No offense to Rick Bowness and, the Kyle Stenland and, the number of depth guys, most
Capobianco? That didn't line him up?
Yeah. Alex Limoges. I mean, those guys, maybe they'll sell some tickets on the Manitoba Moose. They're not really moving the needle when it comes to the Jets. And I think there's a real sense of disappointment from a large contingent of the fan base that have seen other markets get real excited, get rejuvenated with moves. And yes, I mean, we have to remember, for every big splash a team makes, they probably lost some key players as well. But, when we're talking losses, Huss, like the Jets piled up a lot of losses last year. They didn't have enough wins to make the playoffs. And their roster today, I don't think anybody could argue that the roster is stronger today than it was at the end of the season. In fact, I would argue it's weaker. They don't have Paul Stastny on the roster that was, a top 6, top 9 player. And I suppose they hope that they've replaced him internally, maybe Cole Perfetti, who obviously wasn't playing at the end of last season. But, you look at what they've lost, and even going back to the trade deadline and Andrew Kopp, they brought Morgan Barron in, and he impressed in some of his showings. But I think when you look at where the Jets were when last season started, and even where they were at the trade deadline to where they are now, they're going to be counting on a whole lot of internal development and growth if they're going to achieve success. And I mean, I think that starts with the blue line. I just wonder, Huss, you and I have talked at length about the blue line. Like every time they sign another RFA, Kovacevic, Gavanki, these guys all now have to pass through waivers. There's no room for them if the Jets are running it back with all the same defensemen. Are they really willing to risk losing Johnny Kovacevic or Leon Gavanki on waivers because they've got a guy holding down a spot? And I mean, if you were asked that question today, I guess the answer is, well, yes. They're not going to carry 9 or 10 defensemen on the roster. There's a logjam there, and I don't know how they're getting out of it.
Mike, when it comes to free agents, and you mentioned Paul Stastny, I have to ask, he is still unsigned.
Yep.
Do you think that there's any chance that the Jets circle back and are able to get something done with Paul Stastny? I mean, I really think that he, in a lot of ways, is sort of the conscience of the team, and especially with the uncertainty about Blake Wheeler's position, if he's going to be here, if he is here, is he still the captain? With all of that dynamic within the room, I mean, to me, Paul Stastny, not only did he have a 20-goal season, was a very effective player on the ice, but I mean, I personally think that he's so important to the club. It might be worth upping an offer or going back to that. I mean, do you think the ship has sailed on Paul Stastny, or is there a possibility that he could still be in the mix for next year?
Stastny's so interesting because to me, he's almost the canary in the coal mine when it comes to the current state of the franchise. And going back to free agent day a few weeks ago, I actually flat out asked Kevin Cheveldayoff that day. I said, Paul Stastny made it clear at the end of last year that he would be willing to look at re-upping here, but he spelled out what's important to him, and he would have to look at where a team is. He wants to win. He doesn't have a whole lot of years left, right? This next contract might be his last contract. So I said to Kevin Cheveldayoff, you're up here telling us you think you have a team that could be a winner. If Paul Stastny doesn't want to re-sign here, like, what does that kind of say about maybe how others perceive the Winnipeg Jets? And a guy like Paul Stastny, who's lived the experience here in Winnipeg, who has twice waived his no trade. So you can't say that Paul Stastny doesn't think favorably of Winnipeg. He thinks so favorably of Winnipeg, he's done what almost no other player has done, and that's waive a no trade to come here twice. But if he doesn't buy what Cheveldayoff and company are selling, that's a pretty stunning, rejection to me of where the Jets are. And I would have to think it would prompt True North to say, well, maybe we're not as good as we think we are if we can't even convince Paul Stastny that it's worth another round. And so, Huss, I don't think money is going to be the bottom line here for Paul Stastny. I really don't. And in fact, I could see a guy like Stastny accepting less than what the Jets might be willing to pay him if a team, let's say Colorado, which decides, okay, we didn't re-sign Nazem Kadri, but we have very limited money to play with. Paul Stastny, there's obviously connection to Colorado. Like, would he take less money to go play for the Avalanche? I don't see why not. I mean, there's a team, they just won the cup. And, they're going to try and take another run this year. And they got, obviously, even without Nazem Kadri, they got a real good foundation there. So, to me, I mean, I'm sure the Jets would love to get Paul Stastny back. I'm just not so sure Stastny is sold on the Jets. And going back to what I said a few minutes ago, what has the team done to convince Paul Stastny that this is a team worth maybe spending his last year as an NHL pro with? And I make the same broader point. I wrote the column a couple weeks ago about Pierre-Luc Dubois. What have the Jets done in the last few months to convince Pierre-Luc Dubois that this is a team worth? Now, it's a bit of a chicken and the egg. You could say, well, if Dubois were to sign here, then they've done something substantial. But there's a lot of guys, I think, that are saying, well, you got to show me that you're serious. And I don't know that the Jets have done nearly enough this summer to really make that case to anybody.
Well, and I'll go one further. What about Mark Scheifele? The last time we heard from Mark Scheifele, he, and God knows we talked a lot about it, and I, like many people, weren't very impressed with what we heard from Scheifele, but the bottom line is he said he needed to see the direction of this team's going. Well, what's he seen so far this offseason? Now, I don't think he was very committed last year, and I think he was part of the problem, to be honest with you, and he's such an important player and such a talented player that I think that had a real effect on the team. But, I mean, if they're coming back hoping that they are going to run it back and things are going to be better with Mark Scheifele, I do have to wonder aloud if some of the things that he said very publicly at the end of the season, if any of that has happened, other than the fact that maybe he's got a head coach that he can come in and he'll actually, try to do what the coach is preaching for the betterment of the team, because I don't think that happened under Dave Lowry.
Right. And we maybe have put Mark Scheifele on the back burner a little bit, but let's not forget that he's a UFA in 2 years. And that means that this time next summer, we're going to be having all kinds of talk, assuming that he doesn't re-up on a long-term extension, about what to do with Mark Scheifele. Because are you running into now his final year where he could then walk for nothing, or are you moving him? And I'll add another name to that list, Mr. Connor Hellebuck, who's a UFA in 2 years from now and was one of the most frustrated players at the end of last season with where things went. And from everything we've heard, I think Elliot Friedman reported that Hellebuck has told the Jets, no, I'm not asking to be traded right now if we're kind of serious about winning. And so I just wonder if you were to, get whether it's Dubois, Scheifele, Hellebuck, Paul Stastny, the fan base, get them all together in a room. I mean, have the Jets made a compelling case to any of them that things are going to be better this year with the few changes that they've made? And I mean, hope is not a plan. And I just get the sense right now that's kind of the Jets' plan. They're hoping that bringing all these guys back, and we've heard lots of talk this summer about chips on shoulders. The Jets should be sponsored by Old Dutch or Lay's with how many chips are out there. There's a lot of chips on a lot of shoulders, we're told. And apparently that's going to be enough. Just the anger over how last season played out, that bringing kind of everybody back, save for maybe a few changes, that all those collective chips on shoulders is going to motivate this group to do a lot better. And I don't know. I mean, again, you look at last year, Pierre-Luc Dubois had a career year. Kyle Connor had a career year. Mark Scheifele, for all his faults, was still a point-a-game player. Blake Wheeler was still almost a point-a-game player. Are you getting more from Blake Wheeler this year? Another year older? I doubt it. So, I don't know what kind of truth there is to the idea that you could bring this group back and expect different results or better results. And, yes, you got a new voice behind the bench, but Rick Bowness is going to have to really work wonders if he's going to be basically having all the same tools in the toolbox that Dave Lowry and Paul Maurice had, and they weren't able to make hay with that group.
Well, the thing was, I mean, we talked about the offensive performances by a number of players, and you're exactly right. But I think everyone would agree that the Jets defensively were a disaster. And Connor Hellebuck's been through that before, and he stood on his head, and he's won some games for them. But I would imagine that if there is the real belief that Rick Bowness can come in and get a buy-in from this team and do some of the things that he did in Dallas, that you could have better results with a very similar lineup. I mean, I see Lowry's right hand in chat says Scheif was practicing with JMO in Calgary. He's having a career year. You heard it first. And then the troll poet laureate, I believe, said that, hey, Calgary didn't do much last year. Look what Sutter did. Go Bonus. I mean, I guess there is the possibility that this comes down to a real bet on Rick Bowness, that he can do the job that neither Paul Maurice or Dave Lowry was able to do last year and get this team to buy in. I would suggest that that's probably easier to do if there is a bit of a shakeup within the roster. Right. But as of right now, that's not the case. The other part of it is, Mike, with the players that are left, like Travis Yost just had the depth chart on the right side. He's been doing these pieces, comparing teams position by position through the league. And I mean, right now you've got Blake Wheeler, big question mark. You got Mason Appleton. You've got Cole Perfetti, who's never played a full season. And you've got Christian Reichel in that spot who, listen, I mean, I think with all due respect to Reichel, I mean, he's certainly a depth player. I mean, could potentially be used when called upon. But I don't think the plan is going in that he is that 12th, a regular in the top 12 right now, which does suggest that, whether it is picking up some scraps from the UFA list or making some sort of a deal. I mean, we focus in on a lot of the big names, regardless of those guys, especially up front. There is a real need to add a couple more NHL bodies to the mix.
For sure. And I look especially at the bottom six of the Jets, and I really wonder, Huss, like, do they have enough offensive punch to compete with the heavyweights of the league? I mean, you look at the best teams in the league, the Tampas and the Colorados and, even the Torontos, the Floridas, like they're running out really talented third and even in some cases fourth lines. And the Jets didn't score enough from their bottom six last year. And I suggest with the loss of a guy like Paul Stastny, you've taken another hit. And even Andrew Kopp, if you want to go back to the trade deadline, like is Morgan Barron, and whether it's David Gustafsson or Christian Reichel or, Cole Perfetti, but I think Cole Perfetti is going to be in their top six. I just wonder, like, do they have enough? And that's why decisions like letting Evgeny Svechnikov, who hasn't signed with any other team yet, kind of curiously enough, but, the Jets, they lost Vesalainen, they lost Svechnikov, even guys like, Austin Pagansky, who was here for a cup of coffee last year and was playing on the third line. Like, they've lost some depth pieces, and I don't know that they've replaced them. And that's why I do think that Kevin Cheveldayoff still has some potential moves up his sleeve, and he took a run at a guy like Danton Heinen, who probably would have been a real nice fit on a third line for the Jets. There are still some guys out there for sure. You look at the list, Sonny Milano is a really interesting piece, and he's a guy who's, a real playmaker. Like, you wonder if he could be a fit. I had put his name on a list, weeks ago as somebody I thought the Jets could look at. Same with a guy like Evan Rodriguez, who was also with the Penguins and is still kind of, I guess, weighing his options. And
he shoots right.
He does, which is something the Jets do not have nearly enough of, that's for sure. And that was a real issue last year, Huss, that they didn't have enough right shots on this team. And again, they haven't really addressed that. So, yeah, I mean, there's some guys out there. Even an interesting name that I've seen some people throw out is Tyler Mott. Maybe not a whole lot of offense there to Tyler Mott, but there is the interesting connection to Kyle Connor. Tyler Mott and Kyle Connor were part of one of the best lines, the CCM line in college hockey that had come along with JT Compher. So there's some names out there for sure, and the Jets have some cap space that I have to think they're going to try and use up. Like, if they go into this season and not only run it back, Huss, but have ample cap space, like, that is really sending a puzzling message to the rest of the team and the fan base that we had money to spend and we didn't even see fit to spend it.
The one thing I will say is having that cap space, I mean, spending it for the sake of spending it right now is a fool's operation. Sure. Because the value of cap space, and we're going to see it. I think there's still 7 teams that are over the cap right now. So, I mean, the fact that the Winnipeg Jets have that cap space, that could very well be part of the plan, knowing that that will be more of an asset as you get closer to the regular season. And maybe the Winnipeg Jets will be able to solve a problem or two utilizing that because of the needs of other teams. And Lowry's right hand says, we have to stay optimistic, Huss. It's not all bad. Tony Fina won back-to-back. I'm still on a high from that, Lowry's right hand. But you know what? And I'm with that. I mean, listen, I think most people know me. I'm going to be fired up when things get going. I'm going to be excited for the season, and I'll be hoping for the best. But I mean, I would love to be sitting here talking about, throughout the month of August, hey, these are the things that have happened. This is why we are going to see a better season, and give people and talk about some of the reasons that we have to look forward to. And unfortunately, that really hasn't been the case so far. Maybe I'm expecting something huge to happen when I take my first day off since September.
Well, let me tell you, Huss, it's not for lack of trying on the part of myself and even my fellow hockey scribes here in Winnipeg. we've been doing everything we can to try and kind of jinx ourselves into something happening. Yesterday being a prime example, when myself, Scotty Billick, Kenny Weeb, Jason Bell, we were all out at Granite Hills with very poor reception. And we were all kind of joking that, well, if ever there was a day to make a big trade, it's going to be this day when we're all kind of out in the middle of nowhere and would have had a real tough time. And of course, nothing ended up happening, but we gave it the old college try anyways.
Mike, hey, just quickly moving over to the Bombers. You mentioned growing up and, seeing Morris Lukowich back, and that would have been the 80s, last time the Bombers were, a consistent championship team. I watched that game again the other day from Saturday night. It's hard to imagine, you can still be surprised and further impressed by a team that has done what they've done the last couple of years. But I have to say, that performance that this team put on in Calgary against a Hungry Stamps team coming off a bye was right up there with the best performances we've seen from the Bombers over the course of this incredible 3-year run. What Mike O'Shea has built, along with Kyle Walters and Wade Miller, organization down, is phenomenal. It seems almost unbelievable. Like, there's pinch me moments still for Bomber fans, even after these 2 Grey Cups. And then you see the performances of a guy like Dalton Schoen coming in, guys that were mixing in for Jackson Jeffcoat. You lose superlatives to describe how much and how far this team has come. And now going into these games against the Montreal Alouettes tomorrow in Montreal and then back here next Thursday, they've already had their best start since 1960. It's hard to imagine, but this team still does actually keep raising the bar.
They really do. And, the culture that has been built in that organization is the kind of thing that I think every sports franchise in every sport dreams about and talks about, but very, very, very few actually ever get there. And the Bombers, to their credit, they've found the winning formula, the magic potion, if you will. And, it certainly starts at the top with what the so-called Canadian mafia has been able to do. And, I think it trickles down into the locker room. And, I had a few people talk to me over the last few weeks about what they've seen from the Bombers, like outsiders. And they point to guys like Willie Jefferson, Adam Bighill, about how these guys are so competitive. They would never let complacency or comfort seep into that room. Like, they are so self-motivated. And, when you have leaders like they do, both on the field and in management and in coaching, I guess it's not a real shock that they've been able to do what they do. But still, I mean, week in, week out, and the Bombers have been dealt, one hell of a tough hand when it comes to the schedule here. Like, they should be running on fumes right now. And they've got a number of key guys out of the lineup. They could put their feet up a little bit, take the foot off. They haven't. And if anything, like you said, Calgary last week, that was their best game of the year, in a game that I think maybe a lot of us thought, not a trap game, because I hate to call it a trap game against a really good team like Calgary, but if ever there was going to be a game where they were maybe due, it was that one. And in fact, the opposite happened. They took it to another level or 10. And so heading into, Montreal now, you think, okay, well, maybe this is the week where they finally kind of exhale and things unravel a bit. But I don't know. I mean, everything I hear, everything I see from this team, it's not in their DNA. And, all I can say is to Winnipeg sports fans, like, soak up what you have in this team. Like, this doesn't come along very often in any sport. And, this is a dynasty in the making. And these guys are a lot of fun. They're an easy team to kind of root for and get behind. Doesn't seem to be a lot of ego or, inflated sense of worth. These guys just go to work every week, get the job done. And what more could you ask for? If you're a Winnipeg sports fan, like, this is the dream scenario. And Huss, I've had a lot of people suggest maybe True North should be kind of hitting up the football club for some tips on what they've been able to do, because we'd love to see that rub off on the Jets from what the Bombers have.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, they're the class of the Canadian Football League right now, and the culture that they have built and the commitment that they have from the players, the connection they've got to the fan base,
Right.
is something that I imagine that downtown they're looking at and admiring. Have a great time with probably 5, 6, 7,000 Manitobans down at the ballpark for this Jays Twin series.
I tweeted out the other day just asking, curious how many of my followers were maybe heading down. I couldn't believe the responses, like hundreds of people saying, yeah, I'm going to be on a bus with 35 other people. And this is really the first time in like 3 years that folks have been able to do what was kind of an annual trip for folks. Perfect storm. You got a great, summer weekend, great weather forecast in the Twin Cities. And two real good baseball teams. The Twins are really good this year. They're leading the division. The Jays are right there as well. Could be a great time. Looking forward to it.
Have a great weekend, and we'll look forward to hearing all about it next week, Mike.
Bet, Huss. Take care.
There it is. Mike McIntyre, the Winnipeg Free Press. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mike McIntyre, and of course, read all of his work at the Winnipeg Free Press. All right, Fienberg's teed up. We're going to get him on in just a second. Before we do that, a big shout out to our friends at Canadian Club. Big summer weekend coming up, as Mike just mentioned. If you haven't tried the new ready-to-drink Canadian Club and ginger ale, what are you waiting for? Conveniently packaged, ready to go in 6-packs at your local beer store or your favorite Manitoba liquor mart. Get in with that. And, of course, the great taste of Canadian Club always makes that summer taste a little bit better. Canadian Club products and the entire Beam Suntory family available at your local Manitoba liquor mart. And, of course, Valor FC game tonight, Valor FC on the weekend as well. Congratulations, by the way, to our winners from yesterday for the tickets. You can also grab CC and Ginger and Canadian Club at all IG Field events, as they are the official sponsor of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Hey, thinking about a spot to go and watch the game tomorrow night? Boston Pizza, obviously, conveniently located all around the city and province. BP Sports Bars are the place to go for Blue Bomber football. Watch the big game on the big screens with big sound and enjoy the amazing summer menu featuring pizza flights are back, as well as carnitas, tacos, and pizzas. And hey, if you're staying home tomorrow, check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. Okay. Coming up a few minutes later, we will get to our Assiniboia Downs picks, Coolbet Canada as well. And, of course, a big thanks to our friends. Speaking of the Bombers, we got, 8 days before we're back at IG Field? But we'll get there a little earlier because, of course, Princess Auto is the spot before the game with the Princess Auto tailgate party. $5 beers, $3.50 hot dogs and pop, DJ Finesse spinning, prizes from the Princess Auto crew. That's how you start game day with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and Princess Auto. And hey, Princess Auto, of course, is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. All right, lots to get to with Fienberg today on the program. Geoff joins us now. What's going on, boss? How you doing?
Oh, Hustler. Got 18 in this morning. Walked 9, which, okay, roll your eyes, but with the leg, that is that's a move. That's a move. So, yeah, happy. That's an accomplishment. So I was happy to do that with my
well,
leg.
you had the surgery before. I mean, I know you've been getting around slowly but surely, but that's solid. That's a big breakthrough for you to be able to walk 9 on the wheel.
Yeah. Walk the front, cart the back. There's a couple a moment, but either way, you got to keep on keeping on getting that wheel back working. It's just these beautiful overcast conditions. Had to get out and walk. Couldn't not.
Listen, I want to talk NFL with you because we're now getting into future season, fantasy football drafts and more. But of course, we always love talking golf with you. And before we talk about any live topics, how about our guy, Tony Finau, back to back.
Take a bow, Huss.
Oh my God. It felt so good to watch it. And the way he did it, dude. I mean, I think he had 2 bogeys in 2 weeks. This is the Tony Finau we always knew was capable. What do you think this does for him? Winning the Northern Trust last year, I think, was huge because of the field that he was in. And yeah, we can talk about that these weren't the deepest fields. This wasn't major-esque, but still a lot of top players. Cantley was in on the weekend. What do you think this does for Tony the rest of the season and going forward?
It does a lot, because I still believe the greatest things are possible for him. Hustler, I'm one of those crazies that as it was happening again, literally went to bet the 50-1 to win the Masters that have now like dropped to the 30s. Now, it can be so stupid because a slow start to next year in a full field event, in a strong event like the Masters, it'll go right back to 50. But it'll do everything. It's now 4 career PGA wins, which is not a number to laugh at. It's like maybe like one away from tying Ricky Fowler, and I think bigger ones are coming. So I think it's not going to be a surprise for him to win next year, and we'll be at a full 5. Maybe he keeps it going to the FedEx Cup. It's been a year of guys getting hot and winning. Congratulations to you. You rolled over your Minnesota Tony into Detroit Tony, even in the face of like, you just like cash Tony and run. Like, who would want to do that? Imagine it from my end, Huss. I bet Tony. I do videos for Mayo. I do content for Odds Checker. I give them my picks all the time. And when I bet Tony, sometimes I'm like, please don't make him the picture of the article that I have to post on Twitter, because then people just chirp me without even going inside the article to chirp me. He's easy, low-hanging fruit. But here I am, a Tony Finau stan, much like yourself, did not bet him in either of these events and had a second-place Grillo and a second-place Pendrith. So I'm like that kid in the GIF who's like being interviewed by the news lady, where he's like, I'm fine, but I'm crying at the same time. But truly, you can see I got a smile on my face because that's how much I love Tony Finau. And to wrap this up, to see him like literally say how proud he is to have like failed for his children, to have seen him fail, and fail is a loose term. Coming second on the PGA Tour, it's a loose term, right? 5th place, 7th place, loose term to call him a failure. But disappointment, to see him, for him to make comments that his children have seen him disappointed and keep trying and keep fighting and never give up, and it'll be there for you. It's like a beautiful way to get here. It doesn't come as easy like, Jordan Spieth, made it look, starting a career. There's a whole journey. So it's such a great story. We're fans. We could wax poetic. People will take shots at the wins, maybe, but I don't care. I think the big ones are still coming as well.
Yeah, I certainly hope you're right, and can't wait for the FedEx playoffs. We got the Wyndham this week. I have to ask you about the Live Tour though. Last week, I guess Henrik Stenson won. I mean, I watched the Pro-Am and then didn't pay much attention once our guy Bryson wasn't really sniffing around it. But I have to ask you, the optics of that event at the Trump event. I mean, the Trump and Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene together. I mean, has the Live Tour just essentially wrapped their arms? I mean, are they the MAGA tour of America, or is that just what happens when you have an event at Donald Trump's golf course?
Listen, I don't know what to make of that. You couldn't imagine they're writing up this league thinking that's the strategy, because in every interview, when the people that truly want to support Live or even the Greg Normans, like the first 50 interviews were all about, look at these millions of people that have found golf in the last 2, 3, 5 years in non-traditional ways. Your fun, your Top Golfs, your simulator, lounges, whatever. These are people that have no allegiances to the PGA Tour. That's literally like saying, because me and my wife are going on a couple dates with couples to the bowling alley, like I'm going to start watching the PBA also, Huss. Like, that's a crazy assertion to begin with, but that's like their whole, like, there's so many people who love golf that don't care about the PGA Tour stuff, but I'll tell you, at least half of them, they're about, like, you're trying to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, it's one thing, it's Trump, it's his course, It's his property. That's bad enough. But to do the whole gamut, I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. Isn't that shooting yourself in the foot? I try to be apolitical, but shouldn't they want to be apolitical? Like,
yeah, it's so polarizing. The bottom line
make people repulsed who are like the anti-Trump. And then there's people who want to get away from politics, from sports, who might even be on that side of the aisle, be like, this is also crazy. Like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, and credit to Stenson. Wouldn't have bet him with someone else's money, despite all the negative energy around him. And, saying, it's being a Ryder Cup captain is my dream, then giving up on that dream for whatever this is. I think he's got to feel, at least when he puts his head to pillow, he made a good decision for himself. He just won $4 million in a tournament. But it feels wrong. I don't know. I enjoy talking about Live way more than like watching it. I'll watch it for 1 minute. And that's honestly because it's the only place I know where to get a leaderboard. So it's like, I'll click on the YouTube thing for a moment just to see the leaderboard. And then, still doesn't have, we'll see. I don't want to hate it. A lot of things are happening, so I don't know, Huss.
Well, one of the other things that's happening, and I'm not sure if you caught this today, Wall Street Journal reporting that 11 golfers on the Live Tour, including Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau, filed an antitrust lawsuit against the PGA Tour today, challenging their suspensions, the opening salvo in a legal fight that could reverberate across professional sports. Gooch, Swafford, Matt Jones also in, seeking a temporary restraining order that would allow them to play in the Tour's FedEx Cup playoffs. First of all, do you think they have any chance of making this happen? And what does this say about where they're at right now? Because it seemed like they were pretty happy to leave for the money, and now they want to come back for FedEx Cup playoffs. I mean, I was shocked when I heard this.
Yeah, there's so much to really unpack here. You got your money, you got your handouts, you want to play less. Now you want to have your cake and eat it too. I think the PGA Tour has every right to tell the deserters to buzz off, at least in this landscape. Maybe in a year, maybe in 2 years. If they need to bend the knee, they'll bend the knee then. As will Live, if golfers will probably bend the knee to come back if there's no more Live. But I don't know. This is really strange to me. You took the money. You didn't really want to be part of it. And the players have to pay for this lawsuit. And people combat that by saying, yeah, well, when someone sues our government, we all have to pay. Well, I would say that's a bit of a stretch. Look at this as more like a homeowners association. Like if someone sues your condo, all your like 300 tenants are in on the paying for these legal fees. That's what Justin Thomas means when he says when they sue this thing, they're suing me, they're suing Rory, they're suing their friends. Like they didn't get enough in leaving. I get they're trying to like hold the legal standard of antitrust, but I would argue Coke is every right. Like if you want to be a Coke sponsor and then go do something for Sprite, they'll probably let you. They're owned by the same people, they're partners. But if you go work for Pepsi, Coke's allowed to say you're not allowed at the Christmas party. Like you're not allowed at the Christmas party. You work for Pepsi now, and we're not friends.
Oh, it just seems like this is never ending. And hey, it's fun for sports talk. It's certainly very interesting.
More entertaining than the Live golf.
Yeah.
And you could argue, could it be more entertaining than some PGA golf? But here we are.
Hey, just before we move on to some NFL, who are you on this week? Is this the week where Willie Z finally gets his win?
That would be nice. But you want to bet Willie Z when like long iron means nothing? Right? When like of course, Davis Love won here, so it shows the wild card aspect. Give me
Kiz won
Z.
last year.
Yeah, and Willie Z can win, and you won't feel like it's bound to happen. But give me Willie Z in the FedEx Cup with everybody and at a stronger number. In this, that's how I look at that aspect, Huss. I'm on the Canadian Corey Connors. I got a 28-1 early in the week. I'm on Harold Varner at 40, Adam Scott at 40, Ty Hatton at 40. I mean, what's the point of going higher? Do you know the last like triple digit winner on tour this year was KH Lee the week before the PGA Championship?
Yep.
The PGA Championship. And who had the stones? I don't know anybody who bet Billy Horschel pre-tournament at Memorial to cash that 60-1. So that's been the only thing I think. JT Poston at John Deere's a bit of a asterisk because John Deere, like everyone was bad, but I'll give that its respect. I have a lot of friends who cashed that ticket. So it just feels like good players are winning golf tournaments, and to not bet good players, you're almost donating. I got guys who are just long shot guys, and they're getting like roasted, Hustler.
Well,
like they're getting obliterated this season right now.
Yeah, there's not been very many of those big numbers sniffing around on Sunday, and certainly not eventually cashing the check. Geoff Fienberg is with us. You can check out all of his content at the Mayo Media Network, along with Pat Mayo and, of course, our pal Tim Anderson. Of course, check out his golf content weekly for Odds Checker. One of the other things that you will be doing with Pat and Tim is getting after it because NFL season is just around the corner. I want to ask you about a couple of futures, but is there anything that proves Bill Belichick is more of the ultimate mastermind in the history, maybe not just of football, but of professional sports, than a apparent accidental text to Brian Flores starts the chain reaction of him leaving the Miami Dolphins, accusing the Dolphins of impropriety, and lo and behold, what happens? The Patriots' division rival loses their first-round pick next season and another third-rounder. I mean, you couldn't even make this stuff up.
It is such an incredible story, like the dazzling way in which, it kind of the germ of all of it is Bill Belichick texting the wrong Brian. A story we adored over the winter, and then that's the genesis of it. And then now we're here, and it's the Dolphins losing those picks. Now, a lot of people who are truly, the insiders feel that they don't want to find the Dolphins guilty of the Flores accusations because there's a big lawsuit going on there. So to penalize the Dolphins for that would then give Flores legally so much ammo for a legal case that we'll just really penalize the Dolphins for something they did. But we're going to get into like the full enchilada here. So it's going to, people, they're an intriguing team. I'm excited about them, Huss. But what if it's almost another unfair to Tua situation in the sense that if the Dolphins aren't good, they don't have their first round pick. It's supposed to be a great QB draft. They lose this ammo to go make a trade up. The reason they won't be good, if you look at the roster, would be Tua. People are going to blame him for things that aren't even his fault, despite being blamed for the things that are actually potentially going to be his fault. What a team to watch this year, though, with the coach and the offense. I'm so intrigued. They hit their floor. I'm not surprised. They hit their ceiling. Not surprised.
Yeah, the two and on folks are ready for the season. He's got Tyreek Hill, he's got Jalen Waddle. It's time to show and prove. And you're exactly right. If it goes south and they realize that they need a new QB, the loss of that pick next year in the first round could absolutely be devastating to the Dolphins.
And it will be. They still own the 49er first round pick, but by all accounts, the 49er first round pick should be that of, not enough to do the maneuvering that it will probably take. And what, as we sit here in August, and I'm not a college football savant, everyone appears to be talking about is going to be an excellent quarterback draft. People like giving the Lions so much credit for getting picks, and, it'll be one more year with Goff and they'll go do their thing. Perfectly timed with their roster peaking, who knows? But yeah, it'll be a huge blow. But hopefully the Dolphins, for their sake, are good and they'll get over it. But I wouldn't get over my team losing a first round pick easily. Oh my!
Well, I mean, you say you'd rather have your owner walk the plank than lose that first round pick.
Would I care? Yeah. I'd rather the owner be kicked out of the league than see my team surrender a first round pick. And to some of these GMs, they value that first round pick more than their firstborn child. So. I mean, they're so valuable. Like, if you put a cash value on a first round pick, flirting with like $8-10 million maybe.
Yeah, well, especially a good one. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, and in a quarterback rich draft. Geoff Fienberg's with us. I know we'll talk a lot of AFC West closer to the season because that really is the show in the National Football League this year. But we were talking off air. You're pretty high on the Vikes. I'm sure that'll make some people happy around here. Why Justin Jefferson? Why in on the Vikings and some preseason bets on Minnesota?
Yeah, so I have really invested in on the Vikings this year in the NFL futures market, Hustler. Almost started with taking in some Warren Sharp content where he was so high on the Vikings. So, there's playoff spots to be had in that NFC. And there's so much noise everywhere around football. But there hasn't been a peep out of Minnesota. Like, at least in the rumors, storyline buzz. New coach. Seems like everything is quietly going well there. I love this Shanahan-McVay coaching tree he comes from. That's the long shot. The 45-1 to win the Super Bowl because there's spots available in the NFC. That's like the pipe dream. That's a nibble. But I'm in on the Vikings over 9. I am in on the Vikings to win the division. And I bet a pretty big piece on Justin Jefferson to win Offensive Player of the Year at 24-1 about a week and a half ago as well. So I'm quite bullish on the Vikings, who have a lot of pieces on defense. And between Cook and the receiving core, I'm a Kirk Cousins apologist. I'm sure everyone is there being like, but Kirk Cousins. Do you really like Kirk Cousins? Way more than people should. I laugh at people who give David Carr so much credit, or Derek, I mix them up. I laugh at people who give Carr so much credit. Like, what's wrong with those people? Like, what do they watch? Well, I'm the reverse. I'm the people that they laugh at out there giving Kirk Cousins probably way too much credit, Huss.
Well, I mean, Jefferson is a phenom. He'll be playing for a brand new contract. He's due for a monster season. And I think you're right. That I'm fascinated to see what becomes of the Packers. I mean, I don't even know what is up with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I still am laughing about his Nick Cage impersonation from that movie Con Air or whatever, popping into training camp for the first time without Devontae Adams. Tons of pressure on Christian Watson, the young rookie that they selected out of Fargo at NDSU. And then, I mean, the Bears are a huge question mark. I'm not expecting a big turnaround from them. I think the Lions are going to be a little bit more competitive, but I think I'm with you. I love the optimism on the Vikings, at least in that division. We were talking Patriots before and Dolphins. I think it's pretty clear that the Bills are the class of the AFC East. What do you make of the Pats, Dolphins, and Jets and their prospects going into this season?
Well, yeah, it does seem like it's all Buffalo's to lose, and that makes total sense. And I don't know. I could see the Jets, like the takeoff year 2 Wilson. I see the ceiling plays. The one thing I'm willing to put money on in this division, and no, it's not picking on the Dolphins like a lot of people might assume I'd want to, because I see a ceiling playing out there. I am here to lay it in front, to stand in front of Bill Belichick and say the dream might be done. I've bet the under 8.5 there, Hustler. I don't like a lot of moves they've made this offseason. To question Bill Belichick would be hyper weird to begin with. But a lot of pieces left there to let a player, selfishly goes to the Chargers, J.C. Jackson. The only reason you almost question why he left is because it was Bill Belichick who let him walk and not franchise tag at corner like they've done with so many. But I do see improvement in Miami. I do see improvement with the Jets. I think it's going to be some stagnant situation in New England, if maybe even closer to regression. They got Patricia calling the plays. I'm here to say, yeah, it's finally going to be like under 500. Bill Belichick, under 8.5. I've made the bet.
Well, and you mentioned that hole in the offensive side of the coaching staff with McDaniel going to the Raiders. Are you buying the Raiders at all? I mean, listen, they've got an all-pro receiver in Devontae Adams. They certainly have some better talent. But I don't know. I mean, we saw what Josh McDaniels did his first run around as a head coach. Yes, he's not installing Tim Tebow as his quarterback with the Raiders, but at the same time, I mean, they're in historically one of the best divisions of all time on paper going in. Is this the Raiders' time right now in the preseason? Because when the regular season gets, reality hits?
I would like to think so, and I don't want to be too harsh because I was pretty hard on them last year, and then, they actually got a playoff spot in a competitive AFC, beat the Chargers in a heartbreaking Week 18 game that never should have been in the positions it was in. All that being said, Hustler, the things this team did last year, their one score record was insane. Their amount of wins as underdogs, incredible. They overachieved, in my opinion, so much last year that even if they do the same thing, they could have the same record because they've already overachieved. So these players will make them better, but I think the record could find them in the exact same place, which might have them good enough or barely good enough or just missing. I think they're missing.
Well, we'll definitely get you back on the program for some more preseason wagers before we kick off in early September. But hey, just on the way out, I know you're a big Jays guy. The trade deadline happened yesterday. The Jays added relievers from Anthony Bass and Zach Pop from the Marlins, a starting pitcher or long reliever, Mitchell White from the Dodgers, and my old buddy Whit Merrifield from the Royals, who, of course, didn't make the trip to Toronto because he hadn't got the shot yet. How's the deadline going over in Toronto? And as a Jays guy, do you think that they added enough to be in the mix and be competitive once this team hopefully makes the postseason?
You're never satisfied. And if they really wanted to be aggressive for this window, I think I would have accepted it. But I don't know. I give them like a C+ Hustler. But I think a lot of Toronto sports fans are insane. So I don't really care what they have to say either. But people aren't happy. People
the minute Soto didn't come to Toronto, it was a failure.
Yeah. People wanted them to do more, and we'll see. Listening to guys like Buster Olney speak, I think we live in this Jays orbit where the prospects might not be as touted as people want. They've made some trades in the last little bit that have taken away from their ability to have done something yesterday. I do believe Rogers is committed to winning. You see what they've done the last off seasons. I think they'll do it again this upcoming off season. I do believe they're committed to winning. I actually, silly enough, maybe I drink too much Kool-Aid. I don't question that.
Fienberg, this has been a great chat, man. Cannot wait. Are you, Tim and Pat, back on Mondays doing football content? Are we still in golf season? How's that shaking out?
Yeah, so we've started with some football stuff. We did a big quarterback conversation already. We dropped part 1. I can tell you in part 2, I get really insulted where he ranks Justin Herbert in a 3-year, no contract, future rankings that we did. But I could only stay insulted for about a minute because then I heard where he ranked Josh Allen and we lost our mind. So we're up to the same old stuff over there, Huss.
I can't wait. Always one of my favorite listens of the week. Folks, make sure you're subscribed to the Mayo Media Network on YouTube and follow Geoff on Twitter at GFienberg17 for all of the content coming up for both golf and football season. Have a great one. Thanks for popping in, man. Always appreciate it.
All the best, Huss.
Have a great one. There's Geoff Fienberg. Great stuff to finish up our Wednesday show. Well, not entirely finished up. We do have to get some Coolbet lines, and we've got to get our horse picks for Wednesday night at the races. Let's get Remo back in here. And Remo, we sort of got carried away talking Jets and Bombers off the top of the program. I didn't get a chance to ask you about what you thought about the Jays deadline deals, what they did and didn't do. Still optimistic about the Jays?
One thing to be optimistic about is that there's way more playoff spots this year. So maybe teams don't need to be as aggressive. I think I agree with Fienberg, giving them C+, getting Anthony Bass and Zach Pop. Whit Merrifield, we're all waiting. Is he going to be able to play home games or not?
They're on a big, long road trip, so it'll work out. If he got the J&J shot yesterday, it'll be 14 days before he can make it into Canada, which will work out. I would have to imagine that they would have had a conversation with the player's agent or something like that he was in to do it. And he said before, and this, as someone that follows a lot of Kansas City follows in sports, his comments when the Royals went to Toronto did not go over well, that, if he was on a contending team and this was a big issue, he would consider it. Which basically just goes to show how he was feeling there in Kansas City with that horrible Royals squad. This is a guy that has been a real impact player over the years. This year, he hasn't been that guy, but I have a feeling that not to get too punny here, but he could be a shot in the arm for the Jays and maybe for his career as well, going to Toronto. Be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Jays, by the way, played this afternoon, lost a tight one. Kikuchi had a nice start, but the Jays lost 3-2 to the Tampa Bay Rays. And then, as we talked about with Mike Remis, it will be an invasion of the ballpark down at Target Field. I have a feeling that half of Southern Manitoba is going to be there wearing blue, cheering on the Jays between Thursday and Sunday.
I always like watching those games on TV. They're always big. When they go to Seattle and all the fans come from Vancouver, and now a weekend series in Minneapolis. And yeah, you got Alec Manoah leading off on Thursday against Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray's on Minnesota, man. I've been way out of it in terms of these baseball transactions here.
Hey, just before we get to the Coolbet lines, can somebody tell me what the hell has happened in chat for the last 20 minutes?
Oh yeah, I'll tell you. Okay, so I mean it's clearly mid-August, right? Or
midsummer,
early
exactly.
August.
We're all just hanging out together in the WST chat with hot food takes.
There's been a lot of food takes. One started it out is a hot dog sandwich. Someone threw that always gets thrown. I was like, yeah, we're not having people like make a poll. I'm like, I'm not making a poll. It's not a debate. It's in between bread and it's a meat in a bread or something in between bread with condiments. Yeah, it's a sandwich. Okay, then we talked about someone's fired off. You guys talking about golf. Someone's like, golf's not a sport, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, like, come on, stop. And then someone's like, make a poll, see what the chat. I'm like, no, there's no reason to. I don't need to give validation. Anyone who thinks it's not. And then, someone threw out the idea about cereal being a soup. And I was like, I've never heard that theory, but I mean, I guess. And then we said our potato chips crackers. I wasn't sure about that one.
I don't believe so.
Yeah,
but the Crispers?
Yeah, they're not
Crispers
chips,
sort
crackers.
of, they're flavored like potato chips, but I think they are crackers. But I mean, a Ritz cracker, that's not a potato chip.
Yeah, I would. Oh, yeah. So that's where we are. I'm trying to think what else we missed. There's a lot of talk about, and then someone's like, "Oh, is hunting a sport?" And I was like, "Yeah." Jeez. And then there was another one. Is cheerleading. I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." So
well, I'm glad you're all entertaining yourselves today in the chat, and of course you've had some great guests. Thanks again to Mike and Fienberg, and of course Morris Lukowich who joined us. All right, let's check out these Coolbet lines. Let's get an updated number. Of course, Remo will have these tomorrow for you when I am away, and it'll be interesting to see how much these numbers maybe move as we get closer to game time. Bombers opened up as a 6-point favorite, went to 5. Seems to be pretty steady at 5.5. Bombers laying 5.5 in Montreal tomorrow in the opening game of the week in the Canadian Football League. Totals 47.5. Bombers on the money line, minus 238. Calgary still 5-point favorites against the Ottawa Redblacks in the Friday game, minus 208 on the money line. Total of 49.5. I'm really interested to see what happens in this Hamilton-Argo game. Again, these teams are going to be playing each other for their next 5 games. But the Argos are at home. I like them to bounce back after that disappointment of handing the Ottawa Redblacks their first win. Toronto's a 2-point favorite at home against the Ticats. And interestingly enough, I don't know, maybe it was the fight that the Elks offense and defense had yesterday that's inspiring people for a better performance than the last time they went to BC and got absolutely humiliated. But they were a 12-point underdog when this game opened. And right now it's 10 points. Total 51.5 out on that fast track at BC Place with Nate Rourke. By the way, if you haven't already gotten in the Winnipeg Sports Talk DraftKings pool, entries are out. It is open. $3. Top 5 win. Make sure you get there, get your lineup in before tomorrow at 6:30 when the Bombers and Alouettes kick off. And no surprise, the Bombers are the clear-cut favorite for the Grey Cup, sitting at 8-0, plus 139 for the Bombers to win it all. BC next up at plus 350. The Calgary Stampeders 5-1. Argos 8-1. Riders 10-1. Alouettes in Hamilton 14-1. Ottawa 35-1. And the Edmonton Elks 50-1. We did talk with Geoff about the upcoming Wyndham Championship. We gave out our picks yesterday on the Lock Shop, but I sort of teased that I do think it's Will Zalatoris' time to crack the winner's circle. He was 20-1 when we were doing the Lock Shop. He's now 18-1. Webb Simpson, 25-1, has dominated that course in the past. And Corey Connor is still a great number at Coolbet, 27-1 right now. And Coolbet also has numbers on the AIG Women's Open. Can Brooke Henderson win her third major? We'll see. But Brooke, 20-1 to win the win it. And they've also got some Brooke Henderson props. I have already placed a bet on Brooke Henderson to win at 20-1, but a more significant wager on Brooke to be in the top 10, and that is plus 235. There's a head-to-head bet against Minjee Lee, a make the cut bet, as well as more than plus money to place top 20. That's probably some pretty good value as well at plus 102. All there at Coolbet. Use the promo code WST if you haven't played a Coolbet before. Canada's most transparent sports book will give you a 100% bonus on your first deposit up to $200 with the promo code WST. And hey, here's a little tease for you folks, for you curling fans. Going to be doing a special interview with a familiar face and a new team that will be debuting in the next couple days, welcoming them to the Coolbet family and talking about a new look for one of the top teams in curling. That will be of particular interest to many people here in Winnipeg. So take a look at that. Make sure you're following Sports Talk WPG on Twitter. And while I'm away, we'll get that tweeted out, but also give Coolbet Canada a follow, and you can follow on their social channels as well. All right, Reem, you're back?
Yeah, did you tell people that I left, or?
I didn't, but you just said it was a funny story, so I figured
the doorbell rang. And like, fine, I usually don't answer, but sometimes I'm worried it's gonna be like a package being left and like someone could steal it. It's happened before. I had someone jacked my Sharpies from my front door. I go answer the door. The guy from city of Winnipeg asking to do a water meter reading. I'm like, I can't do this right now. I'll just send it in. He's like, can I just come in and take a quick look? I'm like, no. Don't you know we're doing a live show here? Yeah. I can't do this.
WST, come on.
If anyone from the city is listening, like, you come literally any other time, not between
1 to 3.
1 to 3. Come any other time. I can send it in. I was like, I don't know. I was like, man, I can't have you again. I literally came.
You've now been red flagged as a very suspicious water meter reading. That's going right up to the top. Hopefully the new mayor doesn't have that on their desk as soon as they win the election.
I shouldn't have even answered the door. This was on me. I should have just looked out the peephole and just said,
sorry, can't do it right now.
I tried to get the guy to go as quickly as possible because I just had the screen on the lines. And I was like, dude, I can't do this. He wasn't going to take no for an answer, but I was like, I really can't.
You ended up giving him no for an answer. All right, let's finish up the program with our Coolbet, or actually our Assiniboia Downs picks. Live racing tonight. Beautiful night out. Little windy, but should be a great night for live racing. Of course, huge start to the week with the record-breaking Derby. Money bet on both the race and the evening. And I've got my picks ready, Remo, so we can, I'll just run through these right now and then you can do yours. I've kind of spread this out between races 1 to 6. Race number 1, I'm going with a 1-2 Quinella, Sins and Wins, and Artesian Dancer. Race number 2, I am going on number 3 to win, Inspiritus, which opened at 10-1. Race number 3, I am going with, I'm putting a bigger bet on the favorite, Daddy's Rare Edition. Going to go $5 on number 6. Race number 4, Dazzlin' Mischief, $3 to win. Race number 5, I am going with a Quinella 2-4, Sizzlin' Susie and True Kate. And then we're going to do the triactor box on the race number 6. We got a big field of 7 horses. And I'm going with a tri-box. I'm kind of unfortunately, I missed out Zenny. I wouldn't be surprised if Zenny gets in there, but hopefully it's going to be 3, 6, and 7. La Chica de Fuego, Sista of War, and What Up Now JT. Those are my picks. Remo, we were not very good last night at all. What do you have in the what do you have to try to get us back in the winner's circle?
I was over last night. I see a lot of water meter reading comments. Look, I can send it in. I don't need the guy to come down here during the show. I can't do that.
As Gregory correctly stated in chat, shout out to the GFL, an accurate water meter reading prevents estimated bills.
I can go read it and call it in. I can do
accurately.
That. I didn't need him to come during the show, and I shouldn't have opened the door. I don't answer the door anymore. I don't have time. People come, I'm watching TV, and I'm like, people can see me through the window watching, and I just don't have time. I don't know. Sorry.
You're a father.
Who comes to the door anymore? BA Split says, strange. I've never had a water meter guy here in at least 5 years. I don't know. Maybe you're not home during the day and they just leave the card.
Maybe you don't have a suspicious water meter reading and they don't have to use precious human resources to go to your door in the middle of the day only to have the door slammed in your face.
Yeah, or maybe he saw my name on the thing, got excited, and was a fan. And wanted to come in during the show and interrupt. Anyways, here's my horse picks. Sorry. Race 2. I'm taking Maybella to win $5. I like Maybella. I always bet on that horse. What's race 7? I'm doing a Quinella 3-6, $5 Quinella. That's Bomb, Gato, and Pucker. And then race 3, I'm doing a 5-6 Quinella. That is, He's the Chairman, Daddy's Rare Edition. I know you bet on that horse. And race 4, I am picking to win House Limit.
There you go, folks. HPIBet.com if you're not able to make it out to the track, but you do want to bet on the races. And of course, you can check out all the action as Remo and I normally do when we're not out at the track on the Assiniboia Downs YouTube page. Kirk and Stretch do a great job throughout the night of giving you insights, some picks of their own, and of course, the live broadcast of the race. And again, if you want to make an arrangement, a reservation in the dining room for live racing, a world-famous prime rib buffet, and more, asdowns.com or 885-3330 to make reservations. All right, well, that's going to do it for us today. A great show. And yes, I know Rob Mahoney was wondering who I am away for the next 2 days. Going out to Aikens Lake. I cannot wait. I've been looking forward to it for months. And who's filling in for us? Well, there's no one really filling in. We'll have a great selection of guests. But yes, the brains of the operation, Michael Remis, taking the reins for the next 2 days. We'll have some guys pop in. I think Billick's going to jump in the first segment tomorrow with Michael. We'll also have Ed Tate from Montreal. Brandon Rowicki is going to jump on the program. And we'll have an interview that I'm doing today with Gary Stern, the owner of the Montreal Alouettes. So tomorrow's show is going to be packed, and then Friday will be great. Darren Bombing is going to jump on with Remo at the beginning of the program. The guys will chop up everything that happened with the Bombers Alouettes game on Thursday night. Ken Weeb's World will pop onto the program, and Hacksaw as well. So 2 full shows with Michael Remis and a bunch of guests popping in while I'm away. And make sure you in the chat behave, as he's going to have quite a bit on his hands over the next couple days. Remo, how are you feeling? Are you excited to step it up? There'll be no running to answer the door or make soup or anything during the show now.
I can't do that. Yeah,
just so you know.
I'm not going to go to the bathroom during the show and just leave it on. I'm nervous, but also very excited. I've never done a show by myself. No one would let me at the old station. So now that we own the place, we can do whatever we want, right? So
exactly. No, you're going to be awesome. I mean, listen, you're a huge part of this show each and every day, and we could get someone to pop in. But I think this is a great time for you to, get a few reps, have some fun, chop it up with the guys, and people can see all the incredible talent behind the scenes sometimes when you're not on it. So anyways, I'm appreciative of you of holding it down. Thanks to everyone for the support of the show. Make sure you subscribe, tell a friend to subscribe, and hit us up on the podcast as well. And make sure you're here tomorrow. Lots on the Bombers and Alouettes before kickoff and Friday's show. Tons of reaction from the game with Michael and a star-studded series of guests. Thanks again, speaking of guests, to Morris Lukowich, to Geoff Fienberg, and to Mike McIntyre. And thanks to all of you for making us a part of your day, gang. We will see you. I'll be back on Monday, but the show will go on. Michael Remis holding it down for the next couple days, along with a bunch of guests, and it's a Bomber game day tomorrow, so you know where to be. 1 p.m. live on YouTube and in your podcast feed a little later on, right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk.